Hi and welcome to another episode of Suave podcast with Divyaa Advaani. Today on my show, I have with me Gauri Kher, who is the founder of HQ. She is a behavioral skills facilitator and a hospitality trainer. Let's hear it from the woman herself. Hi Gauri Kher, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me on your
It's
show.
a pleasure. So tell me about you. How did you start doing what you did and how HQ was born?
Okay, so just to give you a little background, I have been teaching for a long time. I was teaching in various hotel management institutes, and during the breaks, holidays, we would take training for other smaller restaurants and F&B outlets who did not have their own training department. The bigger hotels always have their own in-house training department, but the smaller restaurants don't. And that is how I actually got into training. We did a lot of training through the institutes where I was working, designing everything, the entire program, and I quite enjoyed doing that. So in 2008, we started doing it in colleges around early 2000, and by 2008, I decided to go solo.
Wow, that's lovely. So how many years has it been since you've been in this business?
HQ independently started in 2008. I have been but I've been training for a long time before that through the various institutes that I was working with.
Lovely, lovely. So the institutes, when you talk about institutes, and also like you just mentioned, how bigger places have their own training team, and some places they do not. So what got you into this? Why the idea of a training into hospitality sector?
So I have a background in hospitality myself, and hence I was teaching in the various hotel management institutes. And the businesses started approaching us because they realized that international brands were coming to India, and that also kind of gave them a bit of competition, and everybody wanted to up their game a little.
Right.
And service became a huge focus, whether it was in hospitality or non-hospitality. Service itself became a focus, and we just kind of put everything into a structure and then decided to train staff. That is how our various modules came up through the institutes. We would suggest it to the businesses, and they were quite okay with it as long as the results were delivered.
So when you were talking about, this is firstly great about you coming from a hospitality sector and then getting into the hospitality training. But when you got into this, so you had to say something else.
So that's how HQ happened. No, it was hospitality quorum in 2008 when I decided to go solo.
Lovely. So how was your journey back then, because you were there in the hospitality sector earlier. You have of course seen a lot many things, and that's how you thought of getting into this. But then when you were designing your first module, and then when you were deciding that you want to train the hospitality sector, so the first module that you made, how did you come up with that?
One of the first programs which we did through our institute was for a Naval Maritime Academy, who had to take some technical trainings for a tanker company based outside of India, and the tanker company by norm had to upgrade the skills of their entire crew. So the hospitality or the food and beverage service and production portion was given to us, and they said, you know better about academics, so you just tell us what needs to be done and we'll be fine with it. So we put up a framework, a design, and said this is what they might need, because the stewards and the cooks on the tanker ship do not necessarily go through a very rigorous hotel management curriculum. So they learn on the job, or they come with some experience and then they join the ship. And when we put everything into a framework and giving them a little more information, upgrading their skills, they were quite okay with it, and that is how we did it.
That's lovely. You at least had the flexibility to be doing what you did.
Exactly. I think what appealed to all of us as teachers when we were into a trainer role was the flexibility of the curriculum that was given to us, which may not necessarily be given if it is academically within a certain framework for students.
Absolutely. So how was your experience, when you were training those people out there and then seeing the difference that it was causing to them? how much time, Percy, did it take them to get into the set manner that you were trying to train them over? And then, looking at them going on their own journeys, how has that journey been for you?
Oh, it is training is extremely enriching. Training or teaching, for that matter, has been extremely enriching. It was a 5-day program. Since they already come with experience, we didn't have to start with the basics.
Right.
So the crew was divided into the food production and the food service crew, and the chefs of the institute took up food production, and the F&B teachers, service teachers took up this portion of it. The crew was very nice, felt very nice because someone was putting up some effort into their upskilling. It was away from their routine job, and I think that is what they enjoyed the most, learning about different things.
Right. So that's amazing, with the people learning different things, coming from a background of hospitality, knowing things already. But did you ever face any challenge when these people, since they, there are some people who say that we already know so much, why are you training us? We know this, we know it all.
Yes, yes.
So did you face any of those challenges?
Yes, I did at one point of time. There was one query from a top-notch builder's office to train their F&B service staff. So we are talking about somebody who was pretty premium in those days. I'm talking about, 2006, 2007. And at that point of time, they were one of the leading builders in the city. And what brief was given to us was that since we have very premium customers coming in, our staff should know how to serve. So they had a very well equipped pantry, beautiful crockery, cutlery, glassware. So whichever prospect came in, they were offered tea, coffee, a snack, and the works basically.
Right.
But they just wanted the staff to be trained in a manner, which would befit the entire experience that they wanted their prospective clients or regular clients to have. When we sat down, there was this one person over there who had been with the company for about 25-30 years. Basically, office staff admin kind of a person, and he joined as a young boy, and then after 25-30 years he grew with the company, and he comes and tells me that I've been working here for 25 years, what are you going to teach me? So I said, I'm not here to teach you anything, but I'm going to conduct some activities. We are going to play games. If you would like to join us, you're most welcome. Otherwise, it's okay to feel you're not going to learn anything. So he said, no, if you want to play games, I'm okay with it. So that was just an icebreaker. We did a few activities for communication skills, which drove home some point to him. So at the end of the day, he comes and tells me in Marathi that, oh, I learned so much. Thank you so very much. I really enjoyed your session.
That's amazing. I think that is what a true trainer would want to hear from the person who is training.
So we do come across these. What are you going to tell us?
Absolutely. So tell me one more thing. Since you talk about games and training, having icebreaker sessions, so how important do you think that having games as a part of training is required? Because many times what happens is some coaches, they say, we are coaches, we are trainers, we are here to spread knowledge. And knowledge should be in the most articulate form and how we learned in school.
Right.
Though I understand that gaming is very important. It's a very nice way to engage everybody.
Right.
But there are still some trainers who feel that, only teaching is going to help and not including games. It's more of a modern technique and stuff, but which is not authentic. So how do you feel does that help?
So I have been using games or activities even before I formally got into training, and I used to do it during my teaching days too. That I would so that the students would learn things in a nice manner without me having to kind of be very monotonous and a one-way thing. I used to design word search puzzles and crossword quizzes for them.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, so I had even had my word search puzzles published in the trade newspapers.
Wow, lovely.
This was in early 2003, 2004. So Express Hotelier and Theatre, which used to be the Indian Express publication, has published some of my word search puzzles. And students who from other colleges have written to me saying that okay, we really enjoy it and it's a fun way to learn because that is not teaching, that is facilitating and helping them learn by themselves, discover things by themselves, and that is the best form of teaching.
Absolutely, and I think that
It
is
is a
really very
discovery,
important.
it's a
Yes,
learning discovery.
absolutely.
So I have been doing this and I personally believe in it because that's the way I learn. And it's fun. So when I do crosswords or puzzles or anything like that, I enjoy the most and I get to learn so much. So I thought maybe the students would like it rather than me saying, okay, learn this. And my students give me a good response. The other students give me a good response, and that I've just got it into training. Now, training, be it hospitality or soft skills, because I'm also a behavioral skills facilitator, it is very important to develop rapport.
Yes.
Until the rapport does not happen, but students have enough time to build a rapport. Also, students are captive audience. They have no choice. For 3 years, they have to be with me. Whereas this is maybe a day, 2 days, at the most a month, 3 months, depending on the program design. So building a rapport is absolutely crucial because they have to buy in what I want them to learn or what they need to learn.
Right.
And once that rapport is there, they open their minds to learning. Facilitation becomes so much easier after that.
Absolutely, I completely agree with you on that. So what is the difference that you see? Like you just mentioned about, you have more time with the students, but with the others you do not particularly have that much time. Which is the field you enjoy the most? With the students or with the hospitality sector? Like, you could go and have a quick training session. So what is the most that you enjoy?
So this is like asking mother which child do you like more. So I wouldn't want to say I like one over the other.
Right.
Both have, their own unique traits. Let me put it that way. With teaching, I can see the entire journey of the student for 3 years or so. It is a very structured curriculum, and working with young people. I mean, when they come join Hotel Management Institute, they're 18, 19, typically. Being with young minds at least keeps me sharp. I don't know about others. And I used to be that was the time cell phones had just started. I had bought my first cell phone. And naturally the students were much faster on the cell phone than I was, and they would advise me that when you change, please don't buy this model or buy that model, They taught me a lot. Being with young students keeps your mind sharp. It keeps my mind extremely sharp, and they are fun to be with. Get to know what is happening in the younger world.
Right.
So I love being with students. So that is one of the advantages, that I see their entire journey. And although I left teaching formally in 2008, I'm still in touch with a whole lot of my ex-students who found me on social media. And as far as training is concerned, it is shorter, but there is value add which comes. Unlike students who may have joined and now they have to finish 3 years. Because the parents may not allow them to drop. They have to be with them. I even need to coach them into why you need to now study now that you are here. It is adult learning. So the principles of adult learning are slightly different. They come with certain preconceived notions, and it is my responsibility as a facilitator or a trainer to see that they get what they have in mind. So expectation setting is also very important before a training session.
And how about the other part of it? So this was about you're teaching the students. What is it that you like about the other sector that you train? The people who already have a skill beforehand and they're trained, they have experience already. So how is it that you like it there?
So when I train for the hospitality, my forte is pre-opening training. And other than product knowledge and service, customer service and all, which is a given for hospitality training, what is very important is I have team bonding sessions because the team needs to work as a unit. And I stress a lot upon their communication skills and their team building skills or working in a team. That is very, very important.
Absolutely.
Especially during the pre-opening stage, and the launch has to happen. And that is also fun because everybody comes with certain experience. If they are freshers, we start literally from zero, and that is where even training comes into the picture. Like you have to keep the fork this way, knife this way, serve this way. All that happens, and even facilitating and enhancing their softer skills is done for hospitality, which is extremely crucial.
Is there any challenge that you faced during this period?
No. The only challenge is sometimes we don't get a place. So there are like I have trained not only a while work was going on, but because there was work going on, you end up training in smaller spaces, back areas, or sometimes just out somewhere where there is an open space. We will train over there.
So you do not have any problems while you are doing that?
No.
Lovely, that's amazing. That's a true trainer. They can train wherever. So like in our Vedas it is written, right? Earlier the Gurukuls were all under the tree. So the space doesn't matter. Who really wants to learn and who really wants to teach is somebody who can do that anywhere. So that is
A change from sitting cooped up inside.
absolutely. But kudos to you for doing that. It's really great that you're doing that. So is there anything else that you would like to tell our viewers about? People who are not from the hospitality industry and are wanting to get into it, but are quite confused because many times we also come across situations where people say that hospitality industry, I am not sure if I want to get into that. And some people are completely opposite. They love the hospitality industry and are crazy about it. So is there any message for them?
Hospitality, to get into hospitality, you don't necessarily need to go to a hotel management institute. There are so many outlets that have been started by people who just had a passion for it. वो कहते हैं ना वो पिंड होना चाहिए.
Yes.
So इसमें पिंड नहीं है तो you're not a fit. It's as simple as that.
Right.
Then it's just numbers. The sense part of it, or कि किसी को अच्छा खाना खिलाना है, that takes a backseat.
Absolutely. But have you ever come across some people coming to you, say, since you've been training over so many years and being a facilitator also, have you ever faced any situations where people have come up to you and said, Gauri ma'am, I really want to get into the industry, but so there are times when even girls they say, I'll be sure hospitality industry is the right for me. Do you think I have a future then? Even if I want to get married, maybe sometimes some people do not really agree to it. And then there are men also for that matter, not being biased about women or men here, but there are men also, they'll be like, I am getting into the hospitality industry, but do you think this is the right industry for me? This is the right fit for me? What will the others think about me? Have you ever got such questions?
So, someone did come to me many years ago. He was doing his first year BCom, and he came to me and said, I'm not enjoying what I'm studying right now, and I want to get into hospitality, and I thought I should come and check with you whether I'm made for it, because I don't want to kind of get into a hotel management institute and then realize that I don't like it. So I suggested that he take up an unpaid internship with some F&B outlet. It doesn't have to be a 5-star hotel or anything like that. He just has to do the basic groundwork, what is known as the slog. And if there is a slog, initially there is a slog. He took up an internship, unpaid internship for 3 months, and he really loved it. Although he was slogging it out, he loved it. He decided to take admission into a hotel management institute. He did extremely well. He started his own restaurant with two other people.
Wow.
In Mumbai. At a very young age. Today, he has an international footprint. His own hospitality company, other than where he is a partner. It feels extremely satisfying to see articles written about his properties in a Condé Nast or something like that, because of the level those units have reached, So he has small boutique hotels, restaurants, and I'm very happy, and he did it the right way.
That's amazing. Must be such a proud moment for you, That's so nice. It's so nice. I'm feeling so happy listening about it.
So every time I see it, I said, that was the right way to go. And of course, whereas he worked hard for it, no credit to him, it was all his hard work.
So you must be feeling so proud, and must be such a moment of delight for you to see your students, maybe particularly coming back to you. but then even seeing them read somewhere, reading articles about them, that's amazing. I'm feeling so good about that. Right? Lovely. So this was about your hospitality sector. Coming to your behavioral skills now. So how did you get into that, and what because you come from the hospitality background. But then, why behavioral skills?
So, soft skills training started. So, soft skills is, of course, the be all and end all. Literally, when you work in the hospitality industry, that polish is something that they look forward to and you need to have. And I didn't realize it, but it automatically got honed during my hotel management student days and also when I was working. And then once when we were training, we received a call at the institute from a corporate for a telephone etiquette session for the receptionist. So we were like wondering, like, if she's not from the hotel industry, why do you need a telephone etiquette session for her? They wanted her to talk on the phone the way the hotel people did, the way answering and all. So what they said was very right. India was opening up, international companies were coming to India. So they said she is the one who sets the tone for our customers, whether they are walk-ins or whether they call over the phone. And this was like, not everybody had a mobile phone then. Early 2000, not everybody had a mobile phone. So they said the way she speaks over the phone or the way she greets a walk-in customer, that can make all the difference, and we want to have that starting point set right. The rest will fall in place. And that did make a lot of sense to us then, and this is how we started doing a lot of etiquette sessions, which led to communication skills, and the rest of the soft skills followed.
And I think this is so good, when people say that irrespective of not being in the hospitality sector, I'm still saying that, irrespective of whatever sector we are in. And I think it holds true also when you are in something, the first point of contact would probably be a phone. If you are not good over a phone call, nobody would want to speak to you further. So that's such a nice thing that even at that point of time, somebody realized and wanted to go ahead.
That was also a learning for us.
Absolutely. And
so it was, the training industry was developing at that point of time, and everybody was learning. Trainers were also learning.
Absolutely. So how was that journey for you? This you started then. So you said this was when you thought about behavioral skills training. So how did you get into it?
So the word spread. When I started doing etiquette and communication skills, the word just spread, and by word of mouth, more work started coming the institute way. And by the time I decided to go solo, I had a fair deal of client base with whom I was working. And then I upgraded my skills because everything was new, and new things were coming into the learning and development industry. So I have certifications. I'm a certified psychometric assessor. Because then the client started asking, do you do psychometric assessments? Then we asked a whole lot of clients, which kind would you like? They said, oh, we want to do this one. So we did that kind of certification. And that really enriched me as a person. I mean, as a trainer, I need to upgrade my skills absolutely on a very regular basis. Learning new things.
That's true. That's amazing. So, while you were learning these things, while you got into, you spoke about people saying your work started spreading through word of mouth. How difficult or how easy was it for you to acquire that first client?
So I didn't have to go and pitch because I was training with the institute, and the institute also said if you want to do on your own, you can do it. And surprisingly, one of my earliest modules came from someone who had attended one of my sessions which I used to do, which came through a reference I knew, through a common reference. He was a student in that lecture.
Okay.
He was about 18, 19 at that point of time. Maybe more, I don't know. And then when he joined the company and he was into learning and development, he asked the institute, can I have the trainer's number?
Lovely.
And then he contacted me, we sat down, we did the design. He said, I remember you did communication skills over there and I want something similar done over here. We sat down, designed a beautiful program, which it's still one of my signature programs, and it's for over 3 months. And I'm still working with him although he has changed companies after that.
That's nice. So, I believe that, when you train somebody and when you make a difference, irrespective of training somebody or not, when you make a difference in someone's life, that comes back to you. When I think, and this is what happened to you, right? When somebody, yeah, so that's really nice.
Most unexpected. So, and I think once the word spreads and when you know what you can deliver, and the client believes in it, it becomes easier. And now with social media, you have various platforms to showcase and display your work, you get recommendations. So that is good.
So that's great. So you were talking about, enhancing your own skills, upgrading yourself with the new things that are happening around you. How exactly do you do that? Because there are so many times, people feel that only if I do courses or only if I have a certification, I will be good.
Right.
But irrespective of that, there are so many other ways also. So why don't you tell our viewers a bit about that?
So just completing a certification does not guarantee that you will become a very good trainer, because you need to have an aptitude to become a trainer. That's the first thing. Wanting to touch people's lives, or like, I want to say something, I want to help them become a better version of themselves, is what my philosophy is. In any which way I can, in my very humble way, I would, if the training is going to make a difference, I would want it to be delivered in that manner, and it will make a difference. Absolutely. And I have seen it where we had a session and with mid-level managers, they were all like 35-ish at that point of time. Salary is not enough and so on and so forth. I said it's a matter of choice. Correct. How can it be a matter of choice? I said nobody forced you to join over here. You can explore other options. So you just need the courage to do it, and probably that is why what is holding you back. And at some point of time, maybe this person did sum up the courage and then he looked for a job abroad, and he is really very well settled now. So,
Lovely.
And he said, yeah, you kind of, what the conversation we had set something going for him. So I'm not saying that I did it, but at least I put the seed of thought in his mind.
That's really nice, and I really appreciate how you said that only having done a certification or getting a certificate is not enough. Having the aptitude for it is more important.
Yes.
So there are so many trainers out there also who do not have any certification, but the love for training is what is keeping them going.
Another very important thing, and this is very crucial because this is what the client wants, that they need to see some results at the end of it. So it's not just like fun and games, there are activities are not to be conducted, but how do you map whether the training has been successful or not?
Right.
And unlike other trainings like sales training and all, you have a system to measure. Correct. In behavioral skills, it becomes a little difficult because the situation changes, and the moment the environment changes around a person, the kind of results expected may not be delivered.
Right.
Also.
Yeah.
So companies should be looking at, they do look at returns on investment, as in we expect this change in behavior, or this is how we want the person to interact with others. So it has to be that tangible, or at least visible.
Yes. So I think you just now you said about return on investment. This is one thing that every time that I am interviewing somebody, this comes up when people talk about how they started the fields and how they got into what they are and how they made the company where it is today. Many of them talk about return on investment, and the very first thing that every time comes into my mind, and even some people have told me, if you see my previous podcast shows, you will see that there are people telling me that till the time I didn't work on myself, I was my biggest asset, and this is time and again even I keep saying this, till the time you don't invest in yourself, the return on investment is not going to come. All the outside factors will play a role, but first and most important is yourself.
Yes.
So this is, I think, very important. Even your trainings, I believe, you would be training your students also, your coaches, your trainees about this, right? So why don't you tell us a little about that?
So, like Benjamin Franklin said, pour your purse into your head. That is the best investment you can ever make. So I do upgrade my own skills. So there are people who believe in investing in themselves. There are companies who believe in investing in their employees. The employees are made aware of that. A lot of companies have career development plans whereby an employee has to chalk out an entire path for the next few years of where they want to be after a certain number of years. And the company will help them with learning and development.
Lovely. So this does play a huge role till the time you don't work on yourself.
Absolutely, absolutely. We are a constant work in progress till our last breath, my belief.
Absolutely, very true and very well said. So when you talk about behavioral skills, I'm sure you also started at some point in your life to work over yourself, and that's how this also came across. So what was that starting point for you? Do you have like a vague idea about where and how you started?
Yes, yes, I have a very clear idea about it. I have a vague idea about it. So I went independent in 2008 doing soft skills training, and in 2010 I got certified as a psychometric assessor on one of the tools. And the one thing that is required as a part of the certification course, we have to take an assessment ourselves. And when I saw that assessment, a lot resonated with me, and a lot of the blind spots which I didn't know about came up, and it made sense. And since then, I've been very clear. The self-awareness quotient actually went up quite a bit.
Nice.
And since psychometric assessments also deal with personality typification, I got to know how other personality types think. So earlier, I would get very disturbed by the way certain people spoke.
Right.
But then now I literally put it down to their personality type, and understanding people has become much easier since then. So as and when something new comes up which I feel can be implemented in a training program, I try and update.
Lovely. So you could also be, in a situation where there are some tough people, or somebody who is extremely introvert, who doesn't open up too quick, or somebody who is extremely extrovert. There might be so many different personalities you will be coming across. So how do you, go across handling each one of them? And even when maybe you're not training them, maybe you're not doing any sort of soft skills training with them, then you could just deal with them and speak to them. Even in your coaching journey, in your HQ, when you communicate with people, outside people, newer clients, when you speak to all of those, there are different personalities, and since you are into the behavioral skills, you understand different personality types. How do you then deal with those kind of people?
I feel, first of all, they are going to be the way they are.
True.
You cannot change their communication style. So I know, okay, this person belongs to this type, so that is the way they would receive communication. Certain styles are more introvertish, I can say, not introvert, but they are not very open in their communication. So there are certain personality styles which are more extrovertish, some who are not so extrovert and would like to, they have a wait and watch kind of a thing and see what is there. So because I understand, I will then modify my communication accordingly. You can't tell the person who communicates with me like that, it has to be my modification that matters. Self-awareness is key to a whole lot of things as far as behavioral skills are concerned.
I think this also must be so many times that you must be coming across in your own office for that matter, because like you said, there are different people, different personalities, and everything going on within their head, so many different thoughts.
I see so many different people every week.
Right.
And this is one of the aspects of communication that I do take up. That sometimes the thoughts run fast, and then people just come out with what is in their mind without filtration, or without considering the impact that the communication will have on the other person.
So nice to hear, what you've been doing and how you have caused changes in different people's life. And I'm sure, the stories that you told us about your student being featured in Condé Nast, like just sowing a seed in somebody's head to for them to start their own thing, choosing the right career. These are all achievements. So it's really nice that you've done so many things, and right now you're running your own company. So what derived you to start with your own company, HQ?
So when there was a great thought to it, but I knew I wanted to do something of my own. When I went out, I thought, there has to be an entity other than me. And I was into hospitality training, so HQ stands for Hospitality Forum, whereby we were offering all the training services, hospitality related training services to the industry.
Right.
So when I started doing behavioral skills training, everybody would say hospitality se kya karna hai.
Correct.
So now it's come down to HQ because changing the name and everything is too much. And my life will continue with HQ is my thought. So we are now HQ India or HQ Training, and we have a separate vertical for hospitality training and separate for behavioral skills, whereby we do the entire gamut, starting with emotional intelligence, communication, and so on.
It's so nice, listening all of these things to me, and I'm sure the viewers also are going to be so inspired by the entire story that we have over here of Gauri Kher, and how she started with the hospitality sector job first, and then starting her own company and making it reach where it is today. And it wasn't something that was endowed to you by your ancestors. And so there are so many such people like Gauri Kher, who are still working or have the aspirations to start their own business someday. So I think even a while back in the interview when Gauri mentioned that you have to be passionate about something, you need to have the aptitude to do something, you need not necessarily have the certifications for it. Knowledge of course is required, but not the certification for it. But you can still start something of your own, and it's not always a drawback that you do not have something to your ancestors. Starting things from scratch for yourself in itself is a big achievement. So I'm so glad you told us about all of this, and it's so nice to be listening to all this. So is there any departing message you'd like to give our viewers here?
I think you have to work within a field that you at least like. It may not necessarily be your passion, but you should have a natural aptitude for it. I have been very fortunate that I found my calling. When I started teaching, I realized that I found my calling and I'm continuing with it. So it's been a pleasure for the past 38 years that I have been working, and enjoy what you do. That is where the fun is.
Absolutely. And I think, this is one quote that I would like to put in over here. This was something I did in my previous interview also, and this was about your husband, Mr. Milind Kher.
Okay.
So Milind Kher, when I met him, he told me about this. He told me this one statement. It's imprinted in me right now, And I said this even in my previous interview. He told me this one thing that, if there is something, what would you pick? Would you pick something that you're good at or something you're passionate about? So I, at that point of time, without any thinking, I said I'll pick something I'm good at. So he said that's exactly the point. Being passionate about something is very good, but if you're not good at it, you will not be able to be passionate about it, and you will not be able to work well for it. So this is something your husband mentioned to me, and that has been stuck with me. And now many people, I try and spread this knowledge, always quoting him that this is what he said, and this is what really helps too. So anyone out there who is thinking that only because of your passion you can do something, you may not have an aptitude. You should have an aptitude for it. So please think wisely before you get into something. That's great. Thank you so much,
Divyaa, for having me.
It's been a pleasure, truly.
My pleasure is all mine.
Thank you so much. So this was Gauri Kher, and I hope you have enjoyed the story, and please do share it with all many more inspiring people who are wanting to get into this industry, into the training industry, the hospitality industry. Just spread the horizons, just think big, think you can do it, you can achieve it, and see where you're going to reach. I will be soon coming up with another video of a new inspiring journey with a new entrepreneur, since that is the kind of stories I like to bring to you. So stay tuned to my channel, and if in case you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, I would request you to please click on the subscribe button and also on the bell icon next to it, so that you get notified each time that a new video is uploaded. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Until I see you next, keep smiling, keep shining.